Well, what's up guys, this is Daniel from Arms Family Homestead, and in this video we're going to talk about a subject that I get asked over and over and over on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I get messages constantly about this one topic, and that is basically, how do you manage your time? How can I as a new homesteader, how can you as a new homesteader or small farmer manage your time between full-time job, kids activities, social events, and the work that needs to be done on the farm? How do you do that? So I've been thinking about doing a video on this for a long time, but I got a message on Facebook the other day from a follower named Stan Malik, and Stan says, I've been following Jason from Cog Hill Farm for about a year now, and have found your page within the past couple weeks and really like it. My wife and I have slowly been getting into homesteading as best as we can with our home situation until we save up and move to a more rural setting. We're currently in a suburban neighborhood with chickens and raised beds, hoping to purchase an acreage and a different home in a year or so. My main question is, I am in law enforcement in Virginia and my wife works full-time as a teacher. How hard is it to balance your full-time work and maintain the homestead? My goals are to increase my number of chickens and start with either goats or pigs to begin with. I of course would do a manageable garden just to provide our family with produce. Alright Stan, I'm going to address this question to you personally and to all of my followers, because I get these questions all the time about time management. How do you make it work? How do you make it work with a full-time job, kids activities, sports, school, all that stuff? So let's get into it. So the first thing, my first suggestion, okay, tip number one is start where you're at and start small. I know I've talked about this a lot on my channel. I know there are a lot of people that live in apartments and things that don't have the opportunity to get out here and do this scale. But do not start on this kind of scale. Start small, start where you're at. If you want to get into this kind of lifestyle, even if you live in an apartment, go to the farmer's market and buy produce there, bring it home, and start putting that stuff up. Start learning how to can it, start learning how to blanch and freeze, things like that. Start learning those skills before you get to a place like this. Especially like with a garden. Do not go out, if you've never grown a garden before, do not go buy a piece of property and go out there and till up a half an acre size garden. You will get overwhelmed. I promise you will get overwhelmed. If you go out there and you try to grow 200 tomato plants and you've got a full-time job, your wife or your husband works full-time, got kids activities, there's going to come a time where it's going to rain for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, off and on. It's going to get muddy and the weeds are going to start growing. You'll get behind on the weeds, and next thing you know, you've got to spend a whole day out there weeding the garden. And then, 3 months later, you've got 200 tomato plants that are loaded down with tomatoes and they need to be picked today, but you've got kids play at school, kids ball games after school, work, can't get away from work for 2 or 3 days, and then what are you going to do? You've got 200 rotten tomatoes out there that you didn't get to pick. So start small. Start with 6, 8, 10 tomato plants. Learn small. Once you do get the hang of it, you can start figuring out the tricks and the processes of growing a garden, more economically, with less work. Figure out different tricks, things like raised beds or drip irrigation. You see, in my garden, I'm a big guy with drip irrigation. I love drip irrigation. This little timer right here, I've talked about it on my channel. I'll leave a link to a video talking about this specifically and the drip irrigation system. But this thing right here saves me so much time. With a full-time job and kids full of activities, this is a digital timer for my garden. I can set it to water. It's digital. I can set it up. I can tell it what days I want it to water, how long I want it to water. I hook it into my drip irrigation system. As you can see, that drip system right there is a lifesaver. Okay, so it's going to save you water, but it's going to save you time. and the water's going directly where it needs to be. If I just set a big sprinkler up in here or a big sprinkler up out here in the garden, all I'm gonna do is just cause weeds to grow. I'm gonna cause the grass to grow, and that will cause me 10 times more work. So something like a drip system in the garden will save you so much time. Things like raised beds where you're not tilling up the whole area and having to fight grass. Raised beds, you can put your soil mixture in there. You get the most bang for your buck in that raised bed because you're not stepping on it, you're not walking on it. Add all those nutrients in there, and as you can see behind me in our little broccoli demonstration back here, they're getting huge. I got broccoli and cabbage back there growing like crazy in these raised beds. So start slow, start small, don't get ahead of yourself. Gardening especially can turn into a lot of work. I personally am cutting back more and more every year on the amount of gardening I do, mostly because with 3 kids playing sports, I've got all 3 kids involved in sports now. And we like to do other things, hunting, fishing, all that. I just don't have time to devote to the garden, you know. Once upon a time I thought, I'm gonna be a market gardener on the side and grow vegetables to sell. And I did for a couple of years, but the problem is I didn't have the time. So it took me a couple years to realize I can't do this. I can't manage it the way it needs to be managed, and it takes too much time away from the people that live in that house right there, who are the most important people in my life. Not the people at the farmer's market. The people that live under that roof right there are the ones that matter. I was growing 10 times more food than what it needed, or what we needed, to feed our family. So little by little every year I've been scaling back. I mean, this year I've got tomatoes planted in here. I'll probably grow less than 20 tomato plants and 10 or 12 pepper plants, not 250 pepper plants, you know. It just doesn't work. So gardening will eat your time up in a hurry. So that's the garden. That was all talking about the garden, which to me is my passion. That's what I love to do in this whole homestead realm of things. But another big side of the homestead small farm world is obviously livestock animals. And actually, in my opinion, for the most part, animals are a lot easier than a garden. Take like my buddy Dutch from Keeping It Dutch, for example. Talk about him all the time. Dutch grows almost all of their own meat. They butcher a calf every year. They have a few sheep, raise several pigs, and this year they ventured into meat chickens and livestock. Chickens, goats, cows, things like that on a small homestead are so much fun. They're amazing to have around. They just change the whole dynamic of what you do. But same with the garden. When you get into livestock, don't jump in over your head. Do not, and I repeat, do not go out right out of the box and your first time around and order like 100 meat birds. You will be overwhelmed. You will be tremendously overwhelmed. Start small, you know. Start with a laying flock, you know. I mean, I've had chickens my whole life, but look out here, there's, I don't know, 8 chickens right now in the chicken pen. And we do have a bunch more chickens up, you know, chicks that we're raising. But you know, at one time we would have 20 or 30 laying hens because we thought we'd sell eggs. And we did, we sold eggs. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the time and the effort it took away from our family. So, like goats, you know, a lot of people say, you've got 100 acres, why don't you have, you know, 100 goats? Well, because I don't have the time to devote to it. And that's the thing, you'll learn little by little as you get into this stuff, the tips and tricks you need, you know, with livestock. Like say chickens, for example. These laying chickens don't take up a lot of my time, but I use things like bulk feeders, automatic feeder, automatic waterer, because I may not be able to be out here all the time. You know, I may not be able to, there may be days where I really only have 5-10 minutes to devote to checking the animals. And as long as they've got food and water, their basic needs are met. With the goats, you know, in the wintertime, a lot of people kind of hound me on why do you set up round bales? Why do you feed your goats round bales? Well, it's because goats, we all know goats are inefficient when it comes to hay. If it ever touches the ground, they're not going to touch it. They're going to waste it. So there's a lot of hay wasted. But I feed round bales because I have a big round bale feeder and a tractor, and I can go out there and feed them hay once every 2 weeks. And I may not have time to go out there and give them a square bale every single day. Let's go say hi to Bear for a second. There's Bear. Good morning, Bear. What's up, buddy? You want out of this pen? You can skip? Huh? So just remember, if you're wanting to get into this homestead, hobby farm, small farm lifestyle, I want you to remember, guys, it's not a competition. It's not a race. We're not out here to see who can grow the biggest garden and who can have the most chickens and who can you know, butcher the most chickens and all that. If you're just getting into this stuff, start small. Start where you're at. Start learning. There's so many things. There's a lot that goes into this stuff, and it's going to take you years to develop the knowledge base to know all the stuff about, you know, all the different livestock, goats, sheep, pigs, chickens, you know, egg laying chickens, meat birds, the garden. It's going to take you a long time to learn, you know, what's wrong with this plant and why is this plant acting the way it is. And if you just take off one day and you go buy a house in the country in 15 acres and you decide to grow an acre garden and you buy cows and sheep and pigs and chickens and everything all at once, guys, most people are going to get overwhelmed, and within a couple of years they're going to sell them all. They may keep the rural property, but they're not going to be producing any of their own food, and then you're right back where you started. So what's the point? So start small. I love this lifestyle. So many people out here love this lifestyle. But there are some things. There's just reality to the world. Okay? Most of us, the vast majority of the people, at least in the United States, are not out here growing a garden and raising livestock because that's their only means of survival. It's just not the case. For most of us, we do it for satisfaction. We do it for the satisfaction of knowing we can produce our own food, and it's a much, much higher quality than what we can buy at the grocery store. There's just no comparison to a grocery store tomato and a homegrown tomato, or a homegrown, you know, pound of hamburger meat and a grocery store pound of hamburger meat. So we do it for the ability to provide our family with a much higher quality food. So guys, that's all I've got. I hope this video helps you out just a little bit. I know I may have rambled on for quite a while, but you know, I get this question all the time and I want to address it. I try to address it on Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, on YouTube as much as I can, but I hope this video helps some of you out. Guys, don't get discouraged if you live in town and you want to be out here in this lifestyle. Don't get discouraged. Start where you're at. Just like so many other people who start in town with a few raised beds and 4 or 5 laying chickens. Guys, you can do this stuff almost anywhere. I promise. You can start learning. Start learning. That's the thing. Start learning. Plant a seed. See what happens. You never know. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed that. Just a little different video today. If you're not following us on social media, be sure to check us out. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all that stuff. The links are in the description box below. And if you've got any better tips that I might have forgotten today to talk about on how to get started in the homesteading lifestyle, leave them in the comments section down below. I love hearing from you guys. The chat section is where it's at. I learned so much from you guys, I promise. I really do. There's a lot of things I do around here that I've learned from so many of you. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Y'all have a great day, and as always, we'll see you on the next video.